What if I told you that connecting with your pleasure and channeling your sexual energy could not only connect you with the truth of what you're here to share in your business, your true genius and contribution, but also could double your income in less than a month? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And at the time, it absolutely blew my mind with realizations about pleasure, the nervous system, and about reaching elevated states of consciousness where you're connected to your higher wisdom. In this video, I'm going to share with you the short version of that story. I'll also share where you can get the long version if you want to dive into that. And I'm also going to share with you the limitations that I noticed, because it's not like my income doubled for every single month forevermore, or it's some magic silver bullet that's going to solve all of your problems. But it's a very powerful piece in the puzzle. Sound good? Let's go, baby! When I was 18, I experienced pretty much a total sexual shutdown where I couldn't get turned on, I couldn't get wet, and I couldn't feel any pleasure at all from any sort of sexual intimacy. And I developed such a hang up about this. Because I wasn't able to access any pleasure with my partners, I felt guilty that my partners weren't getting the satisfaction of giving me pleasure, and that maybe was even a reason that people wouldn't want to be with me, which led me to feel and literally believe that there was something just broken about my body. Eventually, my childhood best friend and housemate, my one friend that I had confided in about this, encouraged me to talk to my doctor about it. So I got up the courage and I basically bawled my eyes out the whole time I was sharing this with her, because you have to realize I felt like I was basically the only person in the world experiencing this problem. And it's not something I'd ever seen people talk about. And at the time, the internet wasn't as big as the internet is now. And so whenever I tried to search stuff about it, I couldn't find anything. And honestly, talking to my doctor about it didn't help with this very much. Basically, she didn't seem to have any idea what was going on either. And she also seemed to think I was having some terrible unknown problem. She ended up asking me a bunch of questions to determine if I was depressed, which I was. I'd been depressed since I was 13 years old. And she referred me to go and see a psychologist. So I ended up seeing a psychologist for about 6 months who never actually even broached this topic with me. And when I brought it up with her, she was shocked that nothing had changed in that department and told me this must be really serious and I should go on antidepressants. So now I was feeling even more fucked up, even more broken. And if you know anything about quote unquote sexual dysfunction or sexual shutdown, getting hung up about it only really locks it into place. So basically that avenue didn't end up helping me out. I then had a partner that I did experience some major shifts with, but still no orgasms. And then the next partner that I had, it all shut back down again. So here I was feeling so broken, fucked up, disconnected from my pleasure, and like there was just something wrong with me, and I would never be able to access and experience what I thought other women must access and experience. So here I was experiencing the most sexual shutdown I'd basically ever experienced. And to my luck, I went looking again. And this time, someone had actually started to create YouTube videos on this, which was amazing. I watched this one video where this woman essentially just broke down how trauma can be held in the body, either from physical trauma or even just growing up with the belief that it's not safe to be sexual as a woman, and you're basically under constant threat of sexual violence. And the way she broke it down made it make so much sense. And I was like, oh my God, this is obviously what's happening. How has it taken me basically 6 years of searching to finally come across this information? Once I found this, I was determined to break through this for myself. I signed up for a course this woman was running. I signed up to get extra sessions with her because I felt like I was so blocked and shut down that probably just the normal exercises weren't just going to work for me. And thus I dove in, waiting for my breakthrough in pleasure, my breakthrough to suddenly having amazing ecstatic orgasms and crying my eyes out at the relief, release, and surrender. But it didn't quite happen that way. Over the next year, I did more one-to-one coaching, more courses. I did 3 immersive sacred sexuality retreats, and I even studied sexological bodywork, all to get to the bottom of what was going on in my body and be able to unlock my pleasure, my orgasmic nature, and literally orgasms. And I'm going to be really honest, that breakthrough I kept yearning for didn't come for a long time. And there wasn't one person that magically helped me. There was actually a lot of things that I had to uncover for myself about how to get my nervous system to actually let go and feel safe experiencing pleasure. I learned a whole bunch of sacred sexuality tools, how to start working with my energy, channeling my energy. And while I did experience my pleasure opening up to a degree, because I was still quite shut down in my sexual energy, I was really at the stage where I was just learning to connect with my body. Now, fast forward another year later, there was this one final piece that clicked for me in this most unexpected setting, and everything I ever wanted opened up for me beyond what I even thought could have possible. It's what happened next that was quite interesting. From this place of being connected to my pleasure and my sexual energy, I started to revisit some of those foundational sacred sexuality practices, where I went into practice with myself, activating and turning on my energy, using Taoist practices to bring online my energy systems, and then using sacred sexuality practices to alchemize contraction or fear in my body, and then move my sexual energy up to bring me into expanded states of consciousness. At the time, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear of uncertainty in my life. And all of a sudden, after just the first practice of this, I opened up into the most profound state of love, oneness, and bliss I had ever experienced in my life. As a spiritual seeker already of about 6 years, practicing all sorts of meditation, breath work, and inner work, I realized I was onto something. So I committed myself for a period of time to do at least one of these practices every single day. And by the second practice that I did, for the very first time in my life, I experienced going absolutely beyond any sense of worthiness or unworthiness. Up until this point, I struggled hard with feeling unworthy building my business. I got so stuck in self-doubt and self-consciousness, feeling so ashamed of writing content, sharing any offers, and constantly in this almost paralysis about how I felt I was going to be received by people. After this second practice, it was like I went absolutely beyond all that ego bullshit, and I just felt the absolute truth and core of what I wanted to share with the world, what I wanted to contribute back, and that literally nothing else matters. There's no such thing as being unworthy or worthy to do that. There's just my desire of what I want to share and the obvious rightness and trueness of that. And so immediately I started to have ideas and connect the dots. I started to get turned on. I started to be so connected with my higher self, my higher mission, my purpose, and this natural and innate devotion towards that. How I showed up online changed. The way I created content changed. I decided I was going to put on my very first retreat, and then I ran 2 live in-person events to sell that retreat. And at this point, I haven't run any in-person events for at least a year. So it's typically something that would have been very edgy for me. What happened blew my mind. I booked out both of those events with a waiting list. I couldn't believe it. I was being effortlessly magnetic. And do you know why I was being effortlessly magnetic? Because I was just connected to love, truth, and passion. And I wasn't being derailed and sideswiped by all the headiness that we get into from our ego. And that is the power of not only pleasure, but activating your sexual energy, which is also often called your creative energy. Instead of just using it in a primal sexual way, actually channeling it through your body in a way that brings online so much of your brain and connects you with that sense of oneness, wholeness, and absolute knowing of who you are, your higher self, what you're here to share, and the rightness of you sharing that. When you have that, that changes everything. That month, literally after struggling and my income not growing for at least 6 months, my income doubled. That's when I knew without a shadow of a doubt, all this work that I had done on my sexuality over years, even becoming trained and certified, had to be a part of my work, even if I wasn't specifically helping women with sexuality. Because this is a portal back to yourself, your true self, your power, your magnetism, and your highest purpose and mission. Now, I already told you it's not the magic bullet that solves everything. And while I fully believe your life would change radically if you also did these practices every day for a period of time, as I I've had many clients do, and all of the clients that have actually done it have told me that it absolutely changed their life. They landed next level positions in their job. They got their dream house in an area that they never thought that they'd be able to afford to buy a house. So many things coming together magically from both their energy, but also how they held themselves, and they knew their worth and they knew their value. So while it is an amazing practice on its own, here's the limitation that I see. If you start getting triggered into serious stress states in your life, which if you have your own business is a thing that's definitely going to happen, this is not going to fully override the consciousness work that you need to do to get to the bottom of what is really hooking you in a fear or contracted state. The interesting thing that happened for me after these practices, I had these few months where I literally felt like I was just living in magic. I had never experienced it like this in my life. Also, prior to me starting these practices, I was in an episode of crippling chronic fatigue and health issues where I could barely get out of bed each morning. I was having so much anxiety that I had to go for a walk for 2 hours in the middle of every day just to try to calm down and not fully fucking spiral. These sexual energy practices completely elevated me out of it. It really felt like I'd found the magic hack to life until a really scary event happened. Horrific bushfires broke out over Australia, and where I was living in the city became completely full of smoke from the bushfires. It was terrifying, and it sent my system into existential fear. And then just a couple of months after that, COVID happened. Supermarkets were having shortages. Shortages, yes, of toilet paper, but also shortages of food. State borders were closing, and everyone was freaking out. And just doing my pleasure and sexual energy practices wasn't enough to bring me out of the fear state that I was going into. So that's the limitation. It doesn't cancel out the deep work that you need to do to recognize what makes your system shut down, which when that shutdown is very strong, you're going to find that it's actually really hard to access your pleasure and really hard to access your sexual energy. And that's when you need the mind mastery to be able to go in and do the work on yourself to be able to open up your energy again. When you combine pleasure and sexual energy work with masterful consciousness work, that is when you will find yourself effortlessly and easily connected to your higher purpose, your contribution, where you're going, the mission of your business, the rightness and obviousness of you fulfilling that mission. And the natural momentum, magnetism, and growth of your business revenue comes as a result of that. In my opinion and my experience, this is so much more powerful than just doing something like meditation and journaling. This is what plugs you in and connects you with the inspiration, the ideas, and the genius that only comes from being truly in your passion and devotion. And who knew that you can access all of this through your fucking pussy, the very part of your body that you have been taught to be ashamed of, that you have been taught to not touch, that you have been taught is not for you and is there to serve someone else's pleasure or someone else's life being born. But this is actually the portal to your deepest power as a woman. And to me, it's absolutely no wonder that the religions that have sought to have control over their people have demonized this and shut this down, especially for women, because female sexuality has especially been marked as this sinful, dirty thing that women shouldn't want sex, shouldn't want to be sexual. It's you having connection to this very part of yourself and mastery over how to use this energy to connect with your higher purpose and truth that makes you the most uncontrollable, unfuckwithable. If you're watching this video, there's a very high chance that you know the book Think and Grow Rich. It's one of the most famous money books written by Napoleon Hill, literally in 1937. One of the most referenced money mindset books. But what nobody talks about is the chapter called Sexual Transmutation. And in this chapter, this old white guy in 1937, Napoleon Hill, literally shares that there are 3 different ways to use your sexual energy. 1 is for procreation, 2 is for intimacy with a partner, and 3, get this, is to access human genius. One of, if not the most famous money mindset book of all time references sexual transmutation. Now, I did mention at the start that this is the short version. I have a long version of my sexual healing journey on my podcast, Money, Sex, Business, and Awakening. And it's the second podcast episode, but I also think it's probably time I do an updated one. So if you're watching this video a little bit after release, go and check my podcast on my YouTube channel to see if I've already released it. And if you want to start your next steps on this journey to connecting with your pleasure, your sexual energy, and being able to transmute it to access your genius, then comment pleasure below, because I'm creating a free resource for you right now, and I will share it with you directly when you comment. I hope this video has inspired you. I hope it's given you a glimpse into what's possible. I would love to hear any thoughts or reflections in the comments. And if you are a woman in business that wants to learn how to run and create your business with more of your feminine energy, which is actually really going to work hand in hand with what I've just talked about today in this video, then you're going to want to watch this video next.